AITA for refusing to take my ex-wife back after she abandoned us 10 years ago. Alright, here goes. I'll start from the beginning, and honestly, writing all this down is bringing back all the crap I went through. So this is my story, and I hope it helps someone out there who's been through something similar. I'm 34 now, but let's rewind to 2012. Back then, I was in my late 20s and had just married Megan. She was a year older than me. She's 35 now. We got married after dating for a few years, and everything felt like it was falling perfectly into place. You know that feeling of yes, I made it. Well, that's how I felt. I had a decent job, we'd moved into a nice little house in a quiet neighborhood, and we were expecting our first baby. My son Jacob was born in 2013, and man, becoming a dad was the most incredible thing that ever happened to me. I can't even describe it. I'd wake up in the middle of the night just to check on him, even if he was sound asleep. It's one of those feelings you can't fully understand unless you've been through it. My world revolved around him. But here's the thing. Life doesn't warn you when it's about to slap you in the face. I thought everything was perfect. Megan and I were busy with the baby, adjusting to being new parents, and trying to balance work and family life. But just when I thought everything was going smoothly, the first crack appeared. It was November 2013. Jacob was about 6 months old. Megan had gone to bed early because she was exhausted from taking care of the baby all day. I stayed up late watching TV. Nothing special. And then, her phone, which was charging on the coffee table next to me, buzzed. At first, I didn't think anything of it. People get late messages sometimes, no big deal. But, for some reason, this time I looked, and what I saw changed everything. The message was from our neighbor, let's call him Mark, and it was one of those flirty, suggestive texts. My stomach dropped, that gut feeling when you know something is deeply wrong. At first, I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at it, my mind racing. My brain tried to convince me maybe I'd misread it, like it was a joke or something, but deep down, I knew the truth. I picked up her phone, and, yeah, I went through her messages. I wish I hadn't. What I found wasn't just one flirty text. It was months of sexting, sending nude photos, and conversations about meeting up in hotels. It wasn't a casual thing. Their affair had been going on since, well, apparently since the first week we were married. I was absolutely furious. I felt like an idiot, like I'd been completely blind to what was happening right under my nose. Everything I thought we had, felt like a damn lie. The days after Megan left were a blur. I don't even remember what I did right after finding her note. I went into autopilot, trying to hold it together for Jacob. There were moments I'd just look at him and wonder, how the hell am I going to do this alone? I mean, I was a good dad, but I never imagined raising a child without his mother. The first thing I had to do was tell people. I didn't want to, but I couldn't keep it all inside. I called my parents first. My mom was shocked, obviously, and my dad. Well, let's just say he wasn't that surprised. He never liked Megan. He always said she was selfish and only thought about herself. Maybe he saw something I didn't want to see, but at the time, I didn't care. I was in love and chose to ignore all the signs. Anyway, I also had to call Emily. She was going through her own hell. She had just found out her husband was with Megan, but I figured she needed to know Megan was gone. When I got to her house, I barely had to say anything. I think she already knew. It was like she was just waiting for everything to fall apart. Emily stood there, holding her baby, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She was dealing with postpartum recovery, and now her husband had run off with my wife. It was like our lives had imploded simultaneously. Mark's gone too, she said as I walked in. I just nodded. We didn't need to say much. We both knew what was happening. We were in the same sinking boat. We sat down, and I told her everything that had happened, how Megan had left Jacob, the letter she wrote, everything. Emily listened, nodding, trying to stay strong, but at some point, she just broke down and started crying. And honestly, so did I. It was like all the pain, confusion, and anger came pouring out at once. After that, we started helping each other out. We didn't talk much about the situation at first. It was more of an unspoken thing. Emily would come over to my place, or I'd go to hers, and we'd watch the kids together. Jacob and her baby were close in age, so it made sense. I wasn't equipped to handle everything alone, and neither was she. One day, when Emily was at my house, she just started breastfeeding Jacob, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't even ask her to. She just did it. I think she saw how overwhelmed I was. Jacob was crying a lot, probably confused and missing his mother, and Emily just stepped in and started caring for him like he was her own. It sounds strange, but in those moments, I felt like we were becoming a family. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet, but like two people trying to survive, trying to give their kids the stability they needed. We didn't talk much about Mark or Megan. I think we both just wanted to forget they existed, at least for a little while. But, of course, they were always in the back of our minds. There was no completely escaping what had happened. I tried contacting Megan's family a couple of times. I didn't expect much, but I thought maybe they'd know where she was or what she was planning. Her dad answered the first time I called. He was just as confused as I was. He had no idea where she was and sounded genuinely shocked when I told him what happened. Apparently, Megan hadn't told them anything at all, not a hint. Her dad was furious. He said if she ever tried to come back, she wouldn't be welcome in his house. They basically disowned her. I didn't feel sorry for her at that moment. She made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences, but it didn't make things any easier. It was a really tough time. There were days I just wanted to give up. I was working full-time, raising Jacob, and dealing with the emotional wreckage Megan had left behind. But I kept going, mostly because I didn't have a choice. Jacob needed me, and that's what kept me grounded. Emily and I grew closer over the next few months. Not romantically at first, but we supported each other. She helped me, and I did my best to support her too. It was like we were just trying to get by, and it felt good knowing I wasn't completely alone in all this. One day, Emily came over with her son, like usual, and we were sitting in the living room watching the kids play. She turned to me and said, "Do you ever think about what we're going to tell them? You know, when they're older?" I hadn't thought about it much. I was so caught up in the day-to-day, trying to keep everything afloat, that I didn't have the mental space to think about the future. "I don't know," I admitted. "I guess we'll figure it out when the time comes." But I knew that wasn't a good answer. Eventually, Jacob was going to start asking questions about Megan, about why she left, and I had no idea how I was going to explain that to him. "How do you tell your son his mother abandoned him?" Emily nodded but didn't push it. I think she was just as lost as I was on that subject. Over time, we started doing more things together, taking the kids to the park, going out for lunch, things like that. It felt like we were becoming a family unit, and Jacob started calling her mom. I never told him to. He just started doing it one day, and Emily didn't correct him. I was grateful to her, but at the same time, I was scared. What if Megan came back one day? What if Jacob found out the truth and hated me for it? Those thoughts kept me up at night, but I didn't talk to anyone about them. I just kept it inside and tried to get through each day. We still didn't talk much about Mark or Megan. It was like an unspoken rule between us. We just focused on the kids and getting through the day. But deep down, I knew the past wasn't done with us yet. As time went on, things between Emily and me started to shift. We were still just friends, but there was this quiet connection growing between us. I don't know if it was because we'd been through the same hell, or because we spent so much time together, but it was there. And honestly, it scared me. I wasn't ready to move on from Megan, even if she had abandoned Jacob and me. Part of me was still angry, but another part felt like I hadn't let go of what our marriage was supposed to be. I was caught between wanting to move forward and not being ready to let go of the idea of my family, even though Megan had destroyed it. But Emily was different. She was strong. She'd been hurt just like me, and yet, there she was, taking care of her son and helping me with Jacob every single day. She was present. She was there when I needed someone, even if she didn't realize it. One day, we were sitting at the kitchen table, the kids were down for naps, and we started talking about everything. Our exes, the betrayal, the pain, all of it. It was the first real conversation we'd had about what happened. We'd avoided it until then, I guess because neither of us wanted to open those wounds. "I still can't believe he just left," Emily said, staring into her coffee mug. "I know we weren't perfect, but how do you just leave your child like that?" Her voice broke a little, and I could see how much it still hurt her. "I don't get it either," I replied, shaking my head. "It's like Megan just woke up one day and decided she didn't care about us anymore. I don't think I'll ever understand it." We sat in silence for a while after that. It wasn't awkward or anything, just heavy. The kind of silence where you both know what the other is thinking, but there's nothing left to say. We'd both been left by people who were supposed to love us, and there was no fixing that. As the weeks went by, it started to feel like we were in this strange in-between place. Emily was over almost every day, and our lives were so intertwined that it was hard to imagine what things were like before everything blew up. We had our routines, our inside jokes, and of course our kids. It felt like, well, it felt like we were a family. One afternoon, we took the kids to the park. It was a warm day, and Jacob and Emily's son were running around, chasing each other, laughing like nothing in the world could hurt them. I watched them and felt this weird mix of sadness and happiness. Sadness that their real parents weren't there for them, but happiness that, at least for now, they had each other and they had us. At one point, Jacob ran over to Emily and grabbed her hand, calling her mom without even thinking about it. It stopped me in my tracks. I had never told him to call her that, and neither had Emily. It just happened. And the craziest part was, Emily didn't correct him. She just smiled down at him like it was the most natural thing in the world. After the park, we went back to my place for dinner. We were exhausted from chasing the kids around all day and collapsed on the couch while they played with their toys in the living room. Emily looked over at me and said, "Do you ever think about what's next for us?" I didn't know what she meant at first, so I asked, "What do you mean?" She sighed, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling for a moment. "I mean this. Is this it? Are we just going to keep going like this, helping each other out, raising the kids together? I don't even know what I'm asking, I guess. I just want to know if you think we're more than friends now, too." Her question hit me like a ton of bricks, but in a good way, if that makes sense. I hadn't let myself think about it, but I knew exactly what she meant. There was something between us. I wasn't sure if it was love or if we were just clinging to each other because we didn't have anyone else, but whatever it was there. "I don't know," I said, being as honest as I could. "I guess I've been afraid to think about it. The whole thing with Megan is still pretty raw, you know. But you're right, there's something here." Emily nodded, and for a minute, neither of us said anything. I think we were both scared of what might happen if we crossed that line. "I'm not saying we have to figure it all out right now," she added quickly. "I just needed to know if you feel it too." "Yeah, I feel it," I said finally, meeting her eyes. "I really do." And that was it. We didn't kiss or anything. There was no big romantic moment, but we both knew something had shifted. It was like we'd finally acknowledged this connection we'd been avoiding for months, and now that it was out in the open, it wasn't going away. Over the next few weeks, things carried on mostly the same, but there was a different kind of tension between us. It was like we both knew where this was heading, but we weren't rushing it. We still took care of the kids, helped each other out, and spent time together, but now it felt different, like we were building something new, something real. And then, one night, after we'd put the kids to bed, Emily came over and kissed me. It wasn't planned, it wasn't some grand romantic gesture. It just felt right. And in that moment, everything changed. We didn't talk much about it afterward, but we'd crossed the line. We were together now, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Looking back, I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but somewhere along the line, we stopped being two people helping each other survive and became something more. We'd become a family, and honestly, it felt damn good. It's funny how life can turn things around without you even realizing it. One minute you're barely holding on, and the next, you've got a whole new life laid out in front of you. That's kind of what happened with Emily and me. We didn't plan on becoming a couple. It just happened. We'd been through so much together that when it turned into something more, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. After that kiss, things changed between us, but it wasn't a huge, dramatic shift. It wasn't like we suddenly moved in together or started calling each other honey or anything like that. It was more subtle, but it was there. The way we'd sit a little closer when we watched TV after the kids were asleep. The way she'd rest her head on my shoulder when she was tired. It was like the closeness had always been there, and we were just letting it be what it was. But, of course, life doesn't give you time to settle in. Just when things were starting to feel stable, Jacob stumbled upon something I wasn't prepared for. One afternoon, we were going through some old boxes. I was cleaning out the attic to make more storage space. Jacob was playing with some of his old baby toys, asking random questions like kids do. And then he found it. A photo album I hadn't touched in years. One of those big, old-fashioned ones where you had to peel back the plastic to stick the photos in. He opened it, and the first picture he saw was of him, Megan, and me in the hospital the day he was born. I hadn't thought about that photo in a long time, and seeing it now felt like a punch to the gut. "Who's she?" Jacob asked, pointing to Megan. I froze. I didn't know what to say. Up until that point, Emily and I had told him that his biological mother had passed away. It seemed like the easiest explanation at the time, but now, looking at that photo, I realized what a huge mistake that had been. Jacob deserved the truth, but I had no idea how to explain it. How do you tell a 7-year-old kid that his mom didn't die? She abandoned him. I started, but the words caught in my throat. I looked over at Emily, who was sitting across the room. She gave me a small smile and a gentle nod, encouraging me to say what needed to be said. I took a deep breath. That's your birth mom. Jacob frowned, not quite understanding. But I thought Emily was my mom. She is, buddy, I said quickly. Emily is your mom. She's been with you since you were just a baby. But the woman in the picture, she's the one who gave birth to you. I could see the confusion on his face, which made sense. It was a lot for a kid to take in all at once. I could see his little mind trying to piece together what I was telling him. Where is she? He asked finally. I wasn't ready for that question. I didn't have a good answer. I had no idea where Megan was. Last I heard, she was still with Mark, living who knows where, but I couldn't tell him that. He was too young to understand that whole mess. She's not around anymore, I answered carefully. She left when you were a baby. Why? That question broke me. It's one of those questions that doesn't have an easy answer, and it hurt knowing I had to try and explain it. I looked at Emily again, hoping she'd jump in, but this was my burden, my mess to sort out. She knew it, and so did I. I don't know, I said honestly. Sometimes people make bad choices, and they don't always think about how much they might hurt the people they love. Jacob didn't say anything after that. He just stood there, looking at the photo for a long time. I wanted to say more, but I didn't know where to start. How do you explain to a child that his mother walked out and never looked back? I hated that I couldn't give him a better answer. Finally, he closed the album and handed it back to me. Can I go play? Yeah, buddy, go ahead. He ran off to play with Emily's son, leaving Emily and me sitting there in silence. I felt like such a failure. I tried so hard to protect him from the truth, but now it was out there, and I couldn't take it back. Emily came over and sat next to me on the couch. She didn't say anything at first. She just put her hand on mine. After a few minutes, she finally spoke. You did the right thing, she said softly. He needed to know. I feel like I just made it worse, I admitted. He's going to grow up wondering why she left, and I don't have an answer for that. We'll figure it out, she said, squeezing my hand. He has us. He's not alone in this. She was right. Jacob wasn't alone. He had me, and he had Emily, and together, we would get through this. But it didn't stop me from feeling like I'd let him down. I should have told him the truth from the start, but instead, I told him a lie because it was easier, and now I had to deal with the consequences. In the days that followed, Jacob didn't mention the photo again. He went about his usual routine, playing with his toys, going to school, hanging out with his friends. But I could tell something had shifted in him. He was quieter, more thoughtful. I could see his little mind trying to make sense of it all, and it killed me knowing he was probably still trying to process it on his own. I kept waiting for him to ask more questions, but he never did. Maybe he wasn't ready, or maybe he just needed time to absorb it. Either way, I knew this wasn't the end of it. The questions would come eventually, and when they did, I'd have to be ready to give him the answers he deserved. But for now, I just had to be there for him, be the dad he needed, even if I didn't have all the right words. And no matter what happened, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going anywhere. I'd be there for him every step of the way. Life with Emily was good. After my divorce from Megan finalized, Emily and I got engaged about a year later. We were already like a family, so it felt like the natural next step. We got married, and it wasn't long before we had our first child together. We built a life where we were happy, and for the most part, the mess with our exes felt like a distant memory. We talked about them occasionally, but mostly just to reflect on how far we'd come, how much better things were now. But then, 10 years later, out of the blue, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. I didn't recognize the sender, but opening it, the message made it crystal clear who it was from. It read, I want to see my son and get my family back. We're not divorced yet. I felt a strange mix of shock and anger reading that. It was Megan. After all these years, she decides to waltz back into our lives like nothing changed. I hadn't heard a word from her since she left, and now she was claiming we weren't divorced. The nerve. I showed the email to Emily, and she was instantly upset, which was understandable. She asked me, are you going to take her back? I could see the worry in her eyes. She was afraid Megan could come back and ruin everything we'd built. I held Emily close and told her exactly how I felt. She's an ugly part of my past, and I would never leave you for her. I would never take her back. That calmed Emily down, but the situation wasn't simple. Even though there was no way I'd take Megan back, I now had to figure out what to do about her request to see Jacob. The thing is, I have full custody of Jacob because Megan was absent all these years. She left, and I was the one who raised him. But now that she's back, does she still have any rights? Could she ruin our lives again by trying to claim custody or visitation? I had so many questions and didn't know what to do. One thing was clear. I wasn't just going to let her waltz back in like nothing happened, but I was torn about whether Jacob should meet her. I didn't want to deny him the chance to know his biological mother, but I also didn't want her to hurt him the way she hurt me. After thinking it over, I decided to contact a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I wanted to know what I was dealing with legally. Could Megan just come back and demand visitation? Does she still have parental rights after abandoning Jacob for 10 years? My friend told me something that brought immense relief. He explained that if a parent has been absent and made no contact with their child for over a year, they can lose their parental rights. In Megan's case, it had been 10 years. He reassured me, saying it would be virtually impossible for her to get custody or even regular visitation, especially since she left without a trace and never bothered to contact us until now. A huge weight lifted off my shoulders hearing that. With that relief, I decided it was time to tell Jacob the whole truth about his biological mother. Emily and I had already been going to therapy with him to address some of the questions he had after seeing Megan's photo. I wanted to make sure we did it the right way, so I brought it up in one of our sessions. Meanwhile, I was still trying to figure out what the heck Megan wanted after all these years. So, I reached out to Megan's father. We hadn't spoken in a long time, but we were still on decent terms. He had been just as shocked and disgusted by Megan's behavior when she left. I asked him if he knew why Megan was suddenly trying to re-enter our lives. It turned out Megan had been in touch with her sister sporadically over the years, but not to ask about Jacob. She only contacted her when she needed money. According to her dad, Megan had fallen on hard times. She was working a minimum wage job and living in a small apartment with 3 roommates. She'd been scraping by for years, but now even her sister had stopped helping her. She was asking for more money than ever, and her sister just couldn't do it anymore. For a moment, I felt a pang of pity hearing about her situation, but then I remembered what she did. She left me and her own son. She made her choices. Megan's dad even said reintroducing her to Jacob probably wasn't a good idea. She hasn't changed, he said. She's not in a position to be a positive influence in his life. After talking to him, I contacted Megan's sister for more details. Megan's sister was honest with me, telling me Megan never asked about Jacob, not once in the past 10 years. All she cared about was getting money for rent or food. And to top it off, her affair partner, the neighbor she left me for, was in prison for abuse. Apparently, he'd been locked up since 2015. Hearing that news, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Karma catching up, I guess, but it didn't make anything better for Jacob or me. I asked Megan's sister if Megan knew about the divorce, and she told me Megan still thought we were married. She had no idea I'd filed for divorce years ago and moved on with my life. I told her sister to lay out the reality of the situation for Megan, that I had full custody of Jacob, that Emily and I had built a family together, and that Megan no longer had any claim on our son. It was time she realized she couldn't just walk back in and pick up where she left off. When I told Emily all of this, she was stunned by Megan's behavior. She couldn't believe how careless Megan had been, not just by leaving, but by completely ignoring her own child for a decade. She was also surprised about the affair partner, though honestly, that part didn't shock me. They were both a mess. It's been about a month since Megan sent that email, and she hasn't contacted us again. I think once her sister laid everything out for her, she realized there wasn't much she could do. Emily and I have decided to move forward with legally adopting each other's children. It's something we've talked about for a while, and this whole situation just pushed us to make it official. I doubt Megan will contact us again. I think she knows she has no rights here, and hiring a lawyer would just be a waste of time and money. But if anything changes, I'll let you know. For now, we're focusing on our family and keeping our lives as peaceful as possible. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.